Before I begin, I want to specify that no, this is not a video on evil Superman. In fact, this is the exact opposite. Fun fact about kids, they're stupid. Okay, that didn't come out right. Let me start over. When I was a kid, I was stupid. Okay, maybe not stupid, but the thing with kids is that they do tend to be very naive. They tend to not really understand the world around them. And by now I'm sure you're wondering, what does any of that random bullcrap have to do with Superman? Now, for those of you who are unaware, what am I saying? None of you are unaware. Everyone knows who Superman is. How could you not know who Superman is? Superman has been a part of the cultural zeitgeist since 1938. So yeah, pretty hard to miss. There've been good times and bad times and true love to share. I think I found a place, everyone will know, my happy mustache face, this is the Cleveland show. Ha ha, ha ha. But despite Superman's status in pop culture, many people today wonder if maybe the character is outdated. The idea of some colorful, big blue Boy Scout swooping in and effortlessly solving everyone's problems for them doesn't really resonate in a world of dull grays. And because of this, people today tend to gravitate towards more evil versions of Superman. Yes, very evil indeed. The thing with evil Superman is that it's kind of a bad premise. Don't get me wrong, I definitely do like evil Superman. There's a lot of things you can do with that. But it is still kind of a bad premise, and here's why. Now, if you haven't forgotten the past 2 minutes, I guess, then you probably remember me talking about my life when I was a youngster, a little kidden. When you're a kid, the only two things you know about superheroes are A, they always win, and B, they're always in the right. That logic mainly applies to Superman. I guess technically it doesn't really apply to like everyone, but like whatever. When you're a kid, you don't really know that. That's not the point. And the entire point of evil Superman is to subvert both of these expectations. And look, I love subverting expectations. I think it's great to add new twists to already existing ideas. But the thing is, that's me now. Kid me, on the other hand, had other ideas. Kid me hated the idea of changing the Superman formula, and he was introduced to that concept through two animated movies, Superman Doomsday and Superman vs. the Elite. If you haven't seen the animated Superman movies, especially the older ones, then you don't know how fricked up they can really get. Let's start with Superman Doomsday, since Kid Me was actually brave enough to finish watching it. Superman Doomsday is based on the Death of Superman arc from the comics. The death of Superman was preceded by, well, the return of Superman, or the reign of Superman as it's also known, where basically a bunch of imposter Supermans try to take on the mantle, some of whom were kind of evil, so the real Superman had to come back and team up with all the good Supermans to fight the bad Supermans. Yeah. In the older days of comics, it wasn't uncommon for characters to have fake-out deaths. It was sort of like the old days version of clickbait. The original Death of Superman was very impactful because, well, even though it was a fake-out, it was a very elaborate fake-out. A fake-out that actually tricked pretty much everyone into thinking Superman was actually dead. And it was all over the place. Pretty much everyone from Saturday Night Live to the news were all talking about the death of Superman. It wasn't just a big deal in comics, it was a big deal, period. And look, I don't want to sound like that guy, but part of the reason this type of thing doesn't really happen anymore is because, well, this type of thing happens way too damn much. Think about the original Crisis on Infinite Earths. When it happened, it was a big deal. But now DC just does a crisis pretty much every other 2 weeks. But anyway, back to Superman Doomsday. Superman Doomsday attempted to fit both of these arcs into a single hour-long movie, and as a result, the Reign of the Superman side of it isn't fully, adapted. DC would try again a couple of years later. This time they would split it into 2 movies, part 1 being Death and part 2 being Reign. This time they could fully adapt the story. And I believe it is the general, fan consensus that the 2-part version is better than Superman Doomsday, except I don't know if this is just the nostalgia talking, or maybe just, the tone the movie was presented in, or maybe it was the art style, but I kind of like Doomsday more. I don't know, I prefer it. The two-parter is still good, but I like Doomsday more. The story of Superman Doomsday is actually pretty straightforward for the most part. Doomsday lands on Earth, Superman and Doomsday kill each other, Lex Luthor clones Superman, the real Superman was revealed to be alive the whole time, so he beats the evil Superman to a pulp. You know, straightforward. You see, when you're a kid, you don't really realize that a movie is just a movie. You don't really think about writing or plot or even how much runtime is left. To you, it's real. It's just a thing that you're watching unfold. Seeing this for the first time, it wasn't surprising. It was heartbreaking. Superman died. But Superman can't die, right? He's supposed to be the strongest. He's supposed to always be there for us. How can he die? This very question is what tormented young me's mind. I still really like the way this whole fight scene ends. The way it all culminates really convinces you that both Superman and Doomsday have kicked the bucket, and really no other Death of Superman since has been able to nail that same level of just over-the-top extremeness. But to my surprise, apparently, Superman isn't really dead. Not too long after his death in the movie, he just sort of randomly comes back. Only now he's different. He's acting strange. Everyone knows the cliché cat stuck in a tree trope. Well, whenever this Superman finds a cat stuck in a tree, he argues that saving it would be a waste of time he could spend saving a human life instead. So he pretty much threatens the owner, telling her that if the cat gets stuck in a tree again, he might, well, it's implied he might do something bad. After apprehending a neckbeard version of Toyman, Superman finds out that he failed to save the life of a 4-year-old girl, and in retaliation he drops Toyman from the sky, killing him. Now Toyman was already creepy enough, but having Superman execute him did not make things any better. And again, to me, evil Superman was still a pretty foreign concept, so him being evil was just as terrifying, if not more terrifying, than him dying. But of course, the evil Superman was really a big fat phony and a clone created by Lex Luthor. But of course the clone broke free of Luthor's control and sought to impose his version of justice on the world. Fortunately, towards the end of the movie, it is revealed that the real Superman actually never died at all and was alive the entire time. Apparently he was just busy growing a mullet or something. And so the two Supermen battle it out, and it's a bit of an ironic twist how the evil Superman is in the red and blue while the good Superman is in the black and silver. I don't know, I just thought it was worth a mention. In his final moments, the clone tells Superman, "Protect the people," which is the same thing he said to Lois when he went comatose? Now, even as a huge fan of this movie, I have to admit, it's not perfect. I do really like this movie's Doomsday fight, and the way they build him up is also very good, but I have to admit that in the two-parter, it actually feels like Doomsday is important to the story instead of just kind of being there. Like, after he dies, you don't just immediately forget about him. And again, Reign of the Superman had a bunch of new Supermen, each one with their own personality and backstory. Some were good, some were bad, some were kind of neutral, and they all interacted with each other in different ways. Whereas in Superman Doomsday, they just kind of, pick and chose different aspects of each Superman and molded them together to make this one just kind of Superman that was evil just for the sake of being evil. Even though I think he does work in this movie, overall, this take on evil Superman does just feel kind of plain. So, one more thing, this doesn't have anything to do with the movie, but it is just like kind of weird, so I thought I'd bring it up. In this, Superman has a robot assistant. He actually has robot assistants in a lot of different versions. But like this one kid a long time ago, again, like after I saw this movie, this one kid I met at the local pool told me he saw a version of this movie called The Death of Superman Part 1, and in it there's a scene where his robot assistant is crying screws, and he also told me that it was in live action, I think. And like when making this video, I tried looking for it, and I have no idea what this kid was talking about. Does anyone know what this kid was talking about? Please help. If I had to rank Superman Doomsday on any kind of tier list or whatever, I'd give it a B tier, but a pretty high B. Maybe not an A, but like still a B, a pretty solid B. Next up, Superman vs. the Elite. Now, the comic that Superman vs. the Elite is based on, a lot of fans agree is one of the best Superman stories ever made, alongside Superman All-Star, of course. When I first saw Superman vs. the Elite, I actually refused to finish watching it, since it was just that scary. Upon seeing it now, I am kind of glad that I never finished it, since if I did, either one of two things would have happened. One, I would have seen the ending and been like, oh, okay, maybe it's not that bad. Or option number two, probably the more realistic option, I would have been even more terrified. So it begins with this really stylized intro where they mix classic cartoons with like more modern rock aesthetic. And I recommend you pause this video right now and just open a new tab and watch it because it's like less than a minute long and it's really cool. Superman meets this new group of heroes called the Elite, and initially their work is appreciated, but eventually it is revealed they are a plague. Superman doesn't get involved in global politics. Issues like that are very complex and can't exactly be solved with the snap of a finger. And even though he believes it's up to humanity to hold responsibility for those issues, he still helps out whenever and wherever he can. The Elite, on the other hand, are a much different creature. They would mow down an entire invading army without thinking twice. They believe that things like mad scientists and super freaks are just a distraction from the real problems of the world, war and poverty. This makes a lot of sense given that Manchester Black grew up in a poor home. He's seen the worst humanity has to offer. Although later it is revealed that he used his telepathic powers to kill his abusive father. But the people agree with him. They prefer Manchester Black and the Elite's method over Superman's, since it gets quick results. Permanent results. Atomic Skull was a terrible person who probably even deserved to die, but he didn't deserve to be brutally executed while the public cheered on. That is hypocrisy. One of the best parts in the movie happens at a car dealership. No, really. It's meant to show that there is no place for heroism in the new world. A symbol of hope like Superman is corrupted and turned meaningless in a dog-eat-dog world. And worst of all, Superman can't simply punch the Elite away. Doing that would only prove them right. The Elite aren't a group, they're an abstract concept, the living embodiment of the inescapable cynicism of a modern society. In a lot of ways, their motivation does kind of mirror the clone in Superman Doomsday. Except from the beginning, you're never really meant to sympathize with the Superman clone, since he's kind of always portrayed as like an insane psychopath. Again, Doomsday isn't perfect. Beating the clone was always more about physical force than ideology. Now, I think the whole to kill or not to kill type of plotline thing can really work, but DC just does it so damn much. And I feel like Marvel doesn't do it nearly enough. MCU heroes be killin'. The issue is that it creates a dilemma in which neither killing nor non-killing is the right option, as both answers will inherently lead to more suffering, leading to the creation of an endless cycle of pain and suffering with no escape. Oh wait, but there is an answer. Superman versus the Elite figured it out! During the final battle, Superman has had it with the Elite, so he snaps and goes full-on crazy, ruthlessly murdering every member one by one. His rampage even leads to the unintentional death of Lois Lane. Manchester Black admits that Superman has gone completely insane, which is kind of like him just admitting that he was wrong, since Superman does say, "I finally see things your way now." Then, in a plot twist that not even M. Night Shyamalan could conceive, it's revealed that it was all just a prank, bro. The whole thing was really an elaborate scheme. Superman never lost control, nobody, not even the Elite, died. It was all just a trick to make Manchester Black admit that he was wrong. This ending shows that Superman has just as much brain as he does brawn. I really hope the next Superman movie takes the same direction as Superman vs. the Elite. Instead of doing some big planetary dark side battle whatever, have it start small. Have it be a story about character and world instead of just powers and punching. I give Superman vs. the Elite an S-. I'm not really a huge fan of the art style. What I like about both of these movies is that Superman is put in very realistic, dark situations, but Superman himself is still the same big blue Boy Scout we all know and love. Whether it be a little boy mourning the death of a single iteration of Superman, or the entire world mourning the death of every Superman. Everyone faces darkness sooner or later in their life. But what gets us through is that spark of childlike wonder. Not to show us how the world really is, but to show us how it could be. And sure, anti-heroes will always exist and they will always have their place. But if idolizing, for example, Rick Sanchez means you miss the point of his character, then not idolizing Superman means you miss the point of his character. Even with all his strength and all his power, he's more human than we ever were. I believe Freddie Mercury said it best when he said, "Why can't we give ourselves one more chance? Why can't we give love one more chance? Why can't we give love, give love, give love? 'Cause love is such an old-fashioned word, and love dares you to care for the people at the edge of the night, and to care for ourselves. This is our last dance." You know, that new Superman anime is pretty good, except they did mistakenly refer to the DCAU as Earth 508 even though it's Earth 12. Earth 508 is actually the Super Friends comic universe. I mean, how could they make such an easily avoidable mistake? I mean, everyone knows that, right? Right?